soon as I had mentally decided that I was going to get and, well, pursue a red Komodo solution for our commercial projects and music videos, there are two thoughts that race through my mind. Number one,
I am never gonna financially recover from this.
but that was more my wallet speaking. And the second thought, what are all the pieces that are required to make this viable? Because unlike many consumer solutions, you need a fair bit of pieces to get the most out of a Komodo 6K. So I sit down and I get to planning and researching and mapping out a solution and separating line items and their approximate cost, and holy shit, this adds up quick. Luckily, it still takes months for a Komodo to arrive at your doorstep, which gave me plenty of time to save up and prevent any damage to my son's education fund. Wait, my child looks nothing like that. So as I'm planning this thing out, well, I realized there's levels to this Komodo rig and our workflow. We'd have to have something that was handheld and versatile, then something that would sit on a tripod for added support, and something that would feature a robust stabilization solution through a gimbal. In this video, I'm going to talk about my solution that hits that first level and how I plan on approaching the other two. Let's get this started.
But God might be on vacation, and the promised land ain't never promised. My baby telling me to be patient, but the devil always working overnight, my darling.
One of the themes for this YouTube channel is my journey from professional photographer to filmmaker, and we're going to get into that in a more literal way as the weeks, months, and years go on. I already told you in a previous video why I bought the red Komodo as part of our kit, and I want to demonstrate how I plan on using it in the field. The real value of this camera is being able to slot it into a variety of setups and have it adapt to the environment that we plan on shooting in. With what I have planned out, there's essentially 3 unique setups that level up in complexity. Let's start with the most simple setup. The Global Dynamics United wing grip. I tried the regular wing grip from Red and it just didn't feel as comfortable. This side arm from GDU, for the left side I should say, is much better in my opinion. Personally, this is a little cramped at times. It hasn't been too much of an issue yet for me, but I'd recommend looking at alternative options if you have lunch boxes for hands. Look, there's several Red approved battery options that you can go with, but I have no shame in admitting that I got the Red Volt batteries because they were the same price and had a matching logo. I picked up 4 of these things to swap out as needed because what's cool about this camera is you can hot swap them in the field. But I found that 2 fully charged batteries have been able to get me through a 6-hour production with relative ease. I also picked up a Watson dual BP charger, and I'm not sure why these chargers are so damn complicated on the internet, but I finally got around to the one that would work for these Red Volt BP batteries, and it's a dual charger. It's from Watson, does the job, charges them much quicker than it would if you were just plugging in the batteries on the back of your camera. So there you go, link in the description as always. The outrigger handle is a pricier solution from Red, but the ergonomics, ability to rotate, and dedicated record button of this handle have won me over. It locks in very securely and the rubberized texture stick to your hand and it feels like you just can't let it go. It costs a pretty penny, but I highly recommend this thing. I also picked up the GDU monitor mount, and I may have spent too much time thinking about this, overthinking about this, but the small ring monitor mount for my Ninja 5 that's recording this right now never instilled a sense of confidence, a lot of confidence I should say, in the field. I went with the GDU option and so far it's been great to use. There's also memory cards, CFast 2.0 and a card reader. A lot of video bros praise this camera for using cheaper memory cards, but as a photographer that got away with SD cards for a long time, these CFast cards are still too damn expensive, at least for my, liking. Anyways, I picked up the 2 Red CFast 512GB cards that are made by Angelbird as far as I know. Not sure why these were cheaper than the Angelbird options, but because of the logo, it ultimately means you're 20% more badass, right? I also picked up a GDU EF cap that sits on the front of the Komodo. The Red Komodo has an RF mount, but comes with an RF to EF adapter, and a shiny red cap is not something you need. Look, you don't need this thing. It's literally a chrome spinner on an Escalade, but whatever. I'm exhibit in this analogy. Jokes aside, the rig you build around your Komodo can scale up or down as needed, and that's what makes this so interesting because it can adapt to just about any commercial environment you're shooting in. Before I continue, I need to give a shout out to Jason Hahn, Lee Zavitz, and Mark Holtz, all of which not only have great YouTube channels that you need to check out, but took the time to personally answer questions and guide me through this journey. I've left links to them in the description, so if by some chance you're not already subscribed, go to their channels and show them some love because these guys, they're just fucking amazing. Now, the level 2 setup for me adds a few more components to create a more robust capturing experience. The first thing in leveling up the solution from 1 to 2 is moving to a better power management system, and for me, that was the addition of V-mount batteries. While not officially approved by RED, the tilted dual BP adapter is what I'm using right now. It sits snugly on the back, which is better than some alternatives, and allows for the use of the Komodo to run off of V-mount batteries. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if it's my copy, but this one is a pain in the ass to put in and take out. So I'm likely going to return this and find an alternative option. I just want to mention what I'm using right now. So I went ahead and returned the Tilta V-mount adapter, the dual BP V-mount adapter for the Komodo, and I picked up this one by Anton Bauer. So even though I recorded that a few weeks ago, it was way too frustrating. I don't know if it was a defective unit that I got, but it was just way too much work. This one clips on much easier, sits nice to the Komodo, and this is close to that level 2 setup that I'm talking about. Here, again, I can mount a micro V-mount battery here with this one by Core SWX, have a D-tap going out, D-tap, P-tap, same thing. Anyway, have power going out to power the monitor here from port keys and have this V-mount also powering the camera itself. So this entire unit right here with the V-mount powering the monitor, it works out to about 7.2 pounds. So about a pound heavier if I was using just one BP battery for the Komodo and one NP battery for the monitor itself. Not that much heavier, but here in a production setting, it just allows me to keep shooting much longer before swapping the battery out. So I thought I'd update this video, let you know what I'm using right now. Again, it's by Anton Bauer and it works incredibly well. The power goes into the DC here. It's not relying on the pins on the back of the camera. And so far, so good. Upgrading the power in this level 2 setup, I went with the Core SWX Neo Mini 98 watt-hour batteries. They're relatively affordable, safe to travel with, and display the remaining battery life, which is nice because if you have an unapproved mount, you won't see the battery life on the Komodo itself. If you aren't aware, moving to V-mount battery solutions also allows you to power additional accessories, which comes in clutch for the next item on this list. The Portkeys BM5WR was a damn nice surprise. This monitor is much smaller than it appears in images online, sits comfortably on the Komodo, and allows you to wirelessly control your camera as well. You can load your own LUTs, focus on subjects, and use a plethora of visual aids to ensure that you're gonna get the shot with the right exposure. I've been using this monitor for several weeks and it hasn't failed me yet. Even in some of the most stressful situations, when you look at what this brings to the table and the price, you really have to put this on the short list for your Komodo solution. Another thing I've been appreciating about the Portkeys monitor is that it's incredibly bright. And in the studio that we're in right now, it's something you'll value because you can actually see your subject and pull focus. And being able to load your own LUTs and see the waveforms allows you to just capture the shot a lot better than looking at the on-screen monitor of the Komodo. On top of that, what I've been noticing, and I can't say definitively, but I haven't had a real heating issue with this monitor. In some warmer environments, I noticed that my Ninja, especially when recording 4K 60, will overheat and I'll get a temperature warning. I didn't get any of that warning on this monitor as well. So shout out to Portkeys. This has been working quite well. Let's get back to shooting and see what else this can do. There are even times where I'll throw the monitor in the level 1 setup just because of how convenient it is and how nice and bright the display is as well. For those of you that are curious, the level 1 solution with the handles, one battery on the back, one battery on the monitor, well, this works out to about 6.2 pounds. When I go over to a V-mount solution where I have the V-mount on the back and that is powering the camera and the monitor through a D-tap connector, that works out to about 7.2 pounds. So about a 1 pound difference. For more dynamic, quick shooting, I will opt for this level 1 setup without the V-mount solution. For longer productions, longer shoot days, this is when I'll move to the V-mount, moving to one big brick with a ton of battery life, having a couple of them available and swapping them out as needed. Now, what about the level 3 setup? Well, I'll be honest, I'm not quite done yet. I'm still researching and testing to find out what this will exactly look like. The main questions are around focusing and stabilization. What does the shoulder rig, tripod, or gimbal setup look like? Those are the main elements that I'm looking to flesh out for this cinematic monstrosity of sorts that allow us to capture more ambitious shots. There are two things that I have to call out though. Now, this item recently arrived to my office and it's been a welcome addition to the kit. This device basically allows you to take a video signal and wirelessly transmit it. Pretty simple. It's useful when I have this and I need someone else to monitor the footage, or maybe I'm looking at it as a director. This is also useful when you're looking to have someone pulling focus, and well, more on that later because that's also part of the level 3 setup. These transmitters will take SDI or HDMI and they're not that big, they don't add too much bulk, and most importantly, they work damn well. All right, so one thing you'll notice right now is the cable management is not on point. So you'll use some bongo ties, probably clean that up a little bit more. And one thing admittedly I should have brought is a magic arm, and that off to the side with the monitor and then having the transmitter on top. These are all things that you get used to once you dive deeper into the filmmaking side of things. And you're moving from photography, you're probably not used to it because you just have a camera, maybe a flash on top or a trigger on top, and that's really it. Totally different beast. This might annoy a ton of professional filmmakers, admittedly, but again, that's sort of the attraction with this, really affordable, relatively speaking, cinema camera, getting these little pieces all together and making it into a setup that's quite viable for someone that's just getting into this, someone that's looking to, take their maybe studio fashion photography and start doing fashion films that really set themselves apart. So shout out again to Hollyland for doing this thing right here. And well, apologies to them as well for using it in such a ad hoc way. What has me even more excited for the Mars 400S is that how reliable it can be, but also the unique applications you can use it for. After speaking with cinematographer, YouTuber, and vintage car hunter Patrick Tomaso, I have some ideas on how I can bring this into photography environments for some added value, but more on that in the future. So another setup with the Hollyland is actually having it in a photography setting, in a pro photography setting. And there's a couple of ways that I am getting a lot of value out of this thing. Number one, having this mounted on top of the flash trigger, while this looks like an interesting contraption, allows me to send a video signal of what I'm seeing from this camera to a monitor. That monitor can be viewed by the makeup artist, the stylist, the client, whomever. They can take a look at this thing and see what I'm seeing when I'm capturing the image live. Number two, if you are someone that's making content, maybe it's just TikTok videos or Instagram reels, or maybe you have your own YouTube channel. Well, that same monitor can hit record. So now when I'm capturing footage and my assistant here is capturing the behind the scenes footage, I can plant my Ninja 5 monitor on top, have the receiver plugging into that. So when they're capturing me with one camera, the Ninja is also recording my POV from this camera, and I can overlay them in a very interesting way like this. This brings a lot more value to those people that are watching, especially for tutorial videos. So not something I initially thought of when I got the Hollyland transmitter, but something that I started using, and now it feels like a staple in my studio photography kit. Now, the lens isn't technically a level 3 solution because I use it across all solutions, but the complexity of this specific solution may make it a little out of reach, at least right away for budding filmmakers. The Contact Zeiss suite of lenses, specifically the MMJ series that were made in Japan, well, they were on my radar for a couple of years. The construction and coating of this glass is really what stood out to me and came together in such a beautiful way for unique visuals. I was introduced to them by one of our DPs, Jason Hahn, a couple of years back and had them on my wish list, just waiting to when I can actually pull the trigger. Now, I'll speak on these lenses in more detail in the future, but for now, I just want to highlight that the work to make these lenses work well, it's a bit of an investment. With the help of some pieces from CINEMATOGRAPHY Lens, you can take these vintage glasses and turn it into powerful cinema solutions. They sell the screw-on mount that goes over the top of the existing mount to convert this to an EF mount. Slap this on the EF to RF adapter and you're off to the races. CINEMATOGRAPHY Lens also sells focus rings, filter adapters, and custom front caps that really make the experience more conducive for filmmaking. This is definitely not something that everyone is going to do, especially when you can get really good EF or RF glass to start capturing right away. But the unique properties of this lens have built a cult-like following to the point where prices for near mint copies are skyrocketing. If you're curious about contact Zeiss glass and using them for your video production, I've left a useful link in the description of this video with way more details.
My mate, you made a permanent home in my head. You moving like a goddess, come my way, my way, my way. Your hips on.
Look, I know what I know, and more importantly, I know a lot about what I don't know. Before investing in this solution, I spent months researching filmmaking, workflows, production, and even practicing them and more. Not just making a wish list on gear, but really investing the time in learning more about the high-end video production world. I made this video with what I hope is a good amount of humility, and I hope that you guys found some value in this production. But more importantly, let me know if there's something you specifically want to learn about in the comments below, because there's this unique thing that you have to come to terms with when you're a professional in one space or discipline, and then you have a YouTube channel. I've been lucky enough to create a lot of success for myself being a professional photographer, and I hope to do the same in filmmaking. But the reality is most people will just know me as that dude with a YouTube channel that talks about cameras, and more specifically Fuji cameras. And while that might create some internal conflict around identity, I've been coming back to the simple fact that there's a ton of you that have let me know that the material I share has brought you value, that it helped you solve a problem, get the right solution, or just made you happy in some small way. And I read all the feedback, so I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you. I don't take this for granted, and I hope you find value in the future videos that I have planned for this channel. As always, my name's Gadgen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.